afternoon, people. We are here again. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be having a look at the differences between a premium tank and a non-premium tank, since I haven't got any other videos to put up just yet. And because I actually have the option to and availability, we're going to be having a look at the difference between the Panther 2 and the Panther 88. Both very similar, just one's a premium tank and one isn't. So one of the things we're going to be looking at specifically to start with is the differences between their armour and their armament. As it is, the tanks themselves, they will have full equipment on them. I just need to wait for this tank to come back and I'll sell it and carry on with it. So we're going to start with the Panther 2. This is fully upgraded with the packages. So you see along the bottom, it's got more so than ever is the 8.8. That's all specifically you're going to be looking into. The differences between what you've got engine-wise and turret do make a difference overall. But between the two themselves, the gun is the main part because you want stuff that's actually going to shoot and penetrate. One of the other things you can look into as well is alongside the ability to do all that stuff, you're looking at the stats on the right hand side, the differences between the two. There's very little apart from the fact that Panther 2 is slightly faster, but not as much concealment. How much of an effect that actually has, well, that depends on how you play it and the perks you have. That crew that's in there will be going into the Panther 88. The other one is to look at the armor, the actual armor, that's on the tank. And because World of Tanks is incorporated into the game, we'll have a look. So you've got the front side of the Panther here, and I'll talk in detail as to what all that means. So on the front of the Panther 2, you can see along the bottom you have the description of what the armor represents. This is the physical armor thickness. This isn't going on the premise of how thick an armor is when it's slanted and angled. In the case of most tanks that you will come across, as is with at least the Panther 2, the armor on the front of the tank and the rears, turrets and whatever will be slightly armored and angled, in a particular way. So this will enhance the amount of armor it has. So whilst for an example you see on the main front point of the Panther, it has between 121 and 160 millimeters thick. That itself will vary in regards to whereabouts you are on a map, whether you're up or down, left or right, and how well you angle it. If a shot comes in from the right hand side and hits the front of it, you may find the effective armor is a lot more and will bounce that shell. It's the whole premise of how side scraping works is to reduce the angle and see if you can effectively push your armor whilst it might be, say, 100 millimeters thick. If you angle it in such a way, say by like 5 or 10 degrees, you might find that effective armor triples or quadruples depending on where it is you're actually being shot from. There are weak spots which are highlighted by this, and is a very good way if you're able to figure out what tank you're having trouble with going up against. Use this as a model of being able to sort out what it is that you need to do and where you can aim weak spots. So in the premise of this one, the little machine gun port is between 51 and 70 millimeters. It's a small target to hit, but it's still something to aim at. There will be other spots you can hit. Generally the lower front plate as well tends to be not well armoured at all and is quite a weak spot, quite a big one on most tanks. Some of the American ones have like a bowed lower front plate, so it can be quite different. So you can see these are generally what you'd find as being a weak spot and where you would want to aim if you wanted to try and pen it. So if we have a look at the side of the actual Panther 2, we can see that it's pretty much pennable all the time. So again, this is where side scraping comes in. Whilst they're not particularly, both this and the 88 aren't amazing at side scraping, if you are going up against, say, tier 6 and 7s, it does save you on quite a few occasions if they're not aimed properly, or if you're behind a building and use that as cover. So it's only between 51 and 70 millimeters thick, and on the rear you're pretty much the same story. The only part of this tank itself which is going to be anywhere near capable of bouncing shells is if you're going to be on the front or side scraping from a building. And on the top view itself you can see that the commander hatches, whilst it's 121 to 180 millimeters, it's still quite a big weak spot. This is only really going to be something that you're going to be aimed at if you're sat behind a rock which covers most of your tank, and also will be if something is shooting down on top of you. The way to look at the tanks in total, moving on to the 88 as an example, whilst the front of the tank itself is not as armoured as what the Panther 2 is, it's still relatively good to bounce off. This is one of the main discrepancies between the two in themselves and what you're looking for to try and difference and see which one's better. I would generally say that if you were to find a tier 8 premium tank against its counterpart, i.e. the case here, or one very similar, you will find that in most cases the premium tank isn't as well as armoured as what you'll find a normal non-premium tank will be. And again, you'll have pretty much the same story going from the sides of the tank to the rear, and on the top as well. It's pretty much the same, but the primary difference in armor in at least between the Panther 2 and what you have from the Panther 88 is just that the front armor is slightly better on the Panther 2 than it is on the Panther 88. That's just going to be the case of at least trying to bounce shots if you're going to be ended up doing that. So if you are going to use the tank and in battle, it's looking to be more one that you'll try and keep back away. The accuracy is fairly good on the gun itself, and I'll show you the stats on the screen now in regards to how good the aim time is against the dispersion and how accurate they're likely to be. And now what I'll also do is show the reload times between the two. Whilst you'll see them in the games of play, because there'll be 2 games one after the other, you will see a difference between how the tank performs in specific roles. So I tried to pick 2 games that were very similar in terms of how much damage I did and how much penetration I got. The main reason for that is because I wanted to give a balanced view on both of them, because what you're looking to try and use a premium tank for is crew XP, which invariably with any premium tank is going to be better than a standalone tank, but the silver earnings. The silver earnings is a lot easier to see the difference between the two, of how much you can actually make from a Panther in the Panther 88 in a similar game as if you played the Panther 2. We now find ourselves on Westfield Park. We're going to be firstly playing in the Panther 2, and it's a long time since I played White Park, if I'm honest, and I'm quite intrigued to get it underway and get going. I do like this map, and this spawn I do find being very overpowered, and I do try something new which is completely different to how I normally play. I will not be going down the left on this, I will be trying to go down the right. I want to try and play this tank as what it should be, as a proper medium. So the first thing I'm going to do, being the furthest tank forward, is to go over the hill and see what it is I can actually spot, and then go from there, figure out what it is the other team are doing, and carry on my normal routine in trying to get the most amount of damage and seeing how the tank effectively plays in a match, and in some way try and actually get in the face of people. I want to try and see again the armor, a comparison between that and the 88. I want to try and put it in a situation whereby you might find yourself playing it. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up top, and I thought, well, I'd start going down left. Because of the light tank that came behind us in our base, it's completely logical for me to go that way, and I'd be much better going back the way I came and over to the right. But at the same time, what I'm doing, because I have the large mini-map, I'm able to see when people are popping over the top. What you'll tend to see is when I do actually turn around, you can see the Super Pershing popping over the top, and using the map at the bottom, you can tell when that's going to happen and when it is likely that they're going to be popping over to possibly take a shot at you. Nice rear armor, very easy to penetrate, easy damage. So I want to try and make my way round to the right. Unfortunately, it's a bit difficult because of the amount of people that sat forward. So this is a good chance to take advantage of how good the accuracy is, especially at close range and aiming at specific weak spots. Fortunately, the Panther, being not very good tier 7 medium, it's quite easy to pen. Even though I thought I actually hit him in the gun mantler, but whatever. I mean, RNG, it goes in weird directions. And again, I don't know. It might just be the gun I'm using is very, very good for that kind of aiming and firing. I did see it both in a row. And there you can see the Pershing taking a shot from the far side. I believe it was actually the Tiger 2 that might have taken a shot at me, because the Pershing was looking in another direction. But again, it's not the best spot to be in, but I needed to try and get out and get around. So it was a case of, what do I do? Do I go forward, do I go back? But this is using the map as situational awareness to try and figure out what it is I need to do, what it is I need to go, and why I need to go in that direction. Is there something else that could shoot me? Fortunately, being that close to the trains themselves, it's unlikely that artillery will aim for me. Not very likely they're going to get a shot on me. So I was pretty much safe from that. And this is an example of being able to use the side of the building as side scraping opportunity. Unfortunately, it just missed the top of my tank. I was able to get a shot on it. What I was looking to try and do here was get him to take a shot at me. Unfortunately, he did decide that he was going to disappear and never return again. So I wasn't able to properly show how good the armor is side scraping wise, but this is a really good example of what happens when you can go up against a building and show the rear part of your tank off, because they will bounce off. Whilst the angle itself is relatively steep, had he actually been there, I would have made the angle shallower, so it would have given me more effective armor and definitely more chance of the shot ricocheting off into another direction. Coming down this right hand side now, I know that there's only one tank, and I know that the people that have been spotted have been on the far left, so what I'm looking to try and do then is push forward. The Panther 2 has very, very good speed. One thing you take advantage of, the reload is relatively good, and for a tier 8 the damage roll isn't particularly amazing. I think they can on the basis it's because it's got a much better reload, you are able to then maybe get more shots into them, but it's very dubious. But it can be nice. Unfortunately, the J Panther, for whatever reason, wasn't looking in my direction. So I don't know. I'm really confused as to what I was looking at through the entire game. And now that the Panther's actually dead on this side, means we can push down and use the tire burst and speed, so to speak, of the tank. But what I wanted to make sure that was, because I was spotted, I wanted to try and avoid being shot. Regardless where he hits me, the J Panther will more than likely penetrate, and that has big derpy potential. So it was a better opportunity for me to just keep on going down. Again, questionable map awareness of the J Panther. He possibly was in his zoom mode all the time because he never seemed to notice me up until the point I got detected. By which that point he was pretty much screwed because he didn't use the wall as cover. If you ever have a building you're fixed turret to tank destroyer, having the building behind you in your back end means that they're not able to fully get behind you like I am now, and it just turned into a pirouette. So this is, if you do use fixed turret to tank destroyers, don't do what this person's doing because it will invariably mean that you are going to die. Again, I asked the question as to what he was doing and why it was making him so easy to kill, but people play tanks differently, so there must have been a reason, just not a very good one. Moving on down again, using the speed of the tank to try and get myself into an open position where I can flank the people in front. We're losing quite a bit of tanks and they are tending to be on the other side of the map, so I was thinking, okay, I need to try and get forward. Fortunately artillery appeared, so I wanted to try and remove him from the game. Had it not been being fired, RNG would have quite frankly gone, yes, I believe the artillery was aimed in and that definitely hit you, because artillery is artillery in RNG. Finally coming up to it, the medium tank that we've seen at the start of the game came back. Overall the tank has performed well. It has taken hits, but that was my own personal fault and not being in the right place at the right time. But the fact of the speed, the tank's mobility, its actual damage overall once you can get enough shots down range does sort of help out with any sort of problems that you can have with it. It counters it quite well. Certainly if you're in a case of, not so much in a town such as Wide Park, maybe sort of like Redshire or Prokhorovka, where you have a lot of open ground, you can probably use its ability to be able to conceal itself quite well and its view ranges and make it use of the proper medium. And at the end of the game you'll see that the overall damage itself wasn't particularly amazing, but to actually get 2,161 is okay. It was for the win. There's quite a few of us left. Now what we'll do is we'll move on to Swamp. We are going to be playing now, this is the Panther 88 match. Again, I'm going to try and use it in a similar sort of way. I want to try and be aggressive in front of people to try and show the armor differences in how the tank plays in certain scenarios. There obviously are going to be medium tanks like your Pershings who have armor in the both lower front plate that are going to be much better at bouncing rounds, but there are drop-offs for each part. As you saw in the actual armor, the showing of the armor itself, the Panther 88 has side skirts which can help in the side scraping department, but because of the lack of armor itself, and this is perfectly illustrated later on, people won't be that stupid to do it. Although having said that, the J Panther before didn't know how to avoid me, so swings and roundabouts, you might find people that know about it, you might find that they don't. So I'm going forward, I'm going to be going forward with the two T-71s, not so much the TD next to me, and we're going to be pushing forward as quickly as we can and as far forward as we can. And again, because of the nature of all the tanks, what happens in this game is not what happened when I played my T-54. So it all changes. Turns out no one went around this side of the map. Disappointing. Bar one tank. One tank came around here. The rest of them went castle. What the hell? So taking advantage of that, pushing around speed. This, if I'm going to point out, this is being aggressive and pushing forward because you're not seeing anything. Push forward until you do. We were able to do it because of the tanks that were next to us, and we were able to do it because of the decisions by the enemy team not being proper. And as the game goes on, you can see how that plays, that if you don't see anything, push forward until you do. If you have scout vehicles going forward, let them do their job and go forward, and try and follow behind them and back them up as much as you can. There's not really much behind me, but there will be soon, and they're slightly a bit lower down towards the actual main swampy part. But I need to go around and support these guys. I don't really want to go that far forward that I'm out spotting stuff, although what happens next, I apparently spot him. So, I mean, that could be construed as something quite beneficial from the tank. I mean, I don't really think I had that much of a viewpoint on him, bearing in mind the T-71 is A, a lot further forward, and B, a light tank. So, I don't know. I mean, the only thing you can say about it is RNG. The Oni is quite an annoying tank to come up against. Most of the Japanese heavies are, because they have trolley armor. It will claim to you, yes, you can 100% pen this armor, and then turn around and go, nope. So the accuracy, whilst it is very, very good in hitting certain spots on the tank, this isn't a perfect example to go up against because I can't tell where I'm aiming. I'm only aiming where the circle is telling me that is either good chance of hitting and penetrating, or no chance of hitting and penetrating. So there's discrepancies as to how good the accuracy is over long range, but we will sort of try and get into that a bit later on. But as it is, the main focus at the moment is taking this tank out, as it looks to be no one, and I mean no one, is helping him out. So why not push forward? We can only safely assume that maybe on the basis of how many people we can see on the minimap in the bottom left hand corner are actually there, they're going to stay there. So we're going to push around. And I want to see again how the tank goes. Unfortunately, due to end user error, which is myself, aiming is slightly a bit off. And also because apparently wooden steps can block shells. Because, I don't know, again, Moondust playing havoc with the servers and tinfoil hats everywhere and whatever. But yeah, the piss poor aiming is how the only other way you can actually describe it. Fortunately, I do see artillery, but I wasn't able to get a shot on him. So this is a point where I'm not wanting to stay still and wanting to move forward. Not too fussed about the heavy now. There's other people around him. His turret turn speed isn't very good, so I'm going to try and go after this Firefly here. So here's an example of a driver who knows that what he's aiming at isn't specifically something difficult to hit, and what he's going to be permanently aiming at is my front, because it's so lightly armoured he can pen it all the time. Despite the fact of how much I try to side scrape, you can always see that his turret is aiming at my front. Now I try and get him to shoot my sides, but it doesn't quite work because he's always moving himself, so he's always having to change his aim, which is meaning that he's always going to have a shot on my front, which is really, really annoying that I get penned by a Firefly and I'm a tier 8 tank. But that kind of highlights the difference between this tank and the Panther 2 in how easy it is to get penned. Now fortunately, this is a great example of the long distance sniping that this gun can actually offer. It's a very, very tight circle, and it's something which is very, very accurate. It is a tier 6 tank, yes, but the premise being that the circle is very, very tight, so you are guaranteed more or less to hit where it is that you actually want to aim. Now, unfortunately, in the game that's being played at the moment, we're having to try and get back to base because it looks as if that side of the flank is gone. Now, I am looking to be there as quickly as possible, but the limitations of this tank really hamper your ability to get back to where you need to be in a certain time frame. So if you find yourself in this situation where you're being flag capped and there's no one around that side to spot the vast other vehicles that are left on the game, i.e. the 2 TDs, then you can be in limbo, because if another person gets in that base, you're not going to get back. Now again, you're going over rough terrain, and this is where I prefer the Panther 2 because of its much better speed overall, more so in climbing hills rather than going along the flat. I know the resistance isn't too great against swamp kind of conditions, but fortunately the light tank going back did reset the cap, and also fortunately the 2 TDs were nowhere in sight in order to try and get in the cap earlier than what they actually did. So going up and over the top, I want to try and get shots on the AMX that's in the base, because he is the one capping with the points, and he will be a primary target when I get into the base because I know he's the one with the vast amount of points. The Ferdinand itself, because he is there and available to shoot, I will just shoot him anyway, and just ignore anything else that comes round. The AMX being in the base, apparently undetected, because, you know, physics, RNG, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I don't manage to spot him. I still, to this day, don't know why it was so difficult to see him, but, you know, I don't know. I really don't. I'm really confused at that. And again, not spotting him until very, very late on, so unless he has camo net, which would be stupid, or binos or coated optic, I would presume he's got something stupid on the tank which he shouldn't have, just because I'm being outspotted by a heavy, but it could be that the tank itself has got longer view range. I don't believe it without having a look, but again, accuracy in that I can roll back, let the aimer go in, not specifically get to the point where it's able to actually fully aim in, but get to a point where I can shoot on the move and it works. Now the final part is I'm shooting the Ferdinand, I'm going to shoot him in the tracks because I have time to reload, I can get shots on him properly damaging. Even if I don't damage him, the other people are shooting him, penning him, and I get free damage. So that's pretty much the ending of both games itself. And what I'm going to do now is show the comparison between the amount of damage I did, not so much the actual overall XP, but the base XP I will do, and then also how much silver I actually earn. Now the Panther 88 was a slightly better game because I did slightly more damage, although a lot of the targets themselves were of lower tier, so in theory it should be a bit less, but the way premium tanks work, it isn't. And overall we can see from that the Panther 2, whilst I only got 2,161 damage with 41,000 gold, 2,373 base XP, but that's for the times 2, so only about 1,100, compared to the Panther 88 where I got 113,000 silver, that's without ops included as well, 3,200 damage of similar tier opponents, and getting 3,000 odd XP, which is a lot more without the times 2 on there, is a much higher base XP. So they weren't exactly the best games to be comparing, so to speak, but the silver earning from a game is whereby you can get an extra 1,000 damage overall, and that is a large increase. That's 70k silver. That's more than double for any extra 1,000 damage. And you can imagine that if I even got anywhere close to the Panther 2, say for example I went down by 1,000 damage and got 2,200, you could fully expect that silver to be double what I've got there from the normal Panther 2 game. So overall it has been a productive one. For which one I would see as being best, I would still prefer the Panther 2. The armor on the front is much better, and the mobility and speed of the tank itself overrules the Panther 88. And whilst the silver earning is very, very good for the Panther 88, I have other better tier 8 medium premium tanks that do a much better job of it because they have the armor to go up against other tanks themselves, specifically the T95E2. So I do hope if you found this informative, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and if you have managed to watch the entire video, congratulations, because it is a fairly long one, and hopefully if you did enjoy it, don't forget to have a look at some of the other ones. I will be trying to put up more comparable videos along with just normal tank videos and the wins and fails and whatnot. And if you have any suggestions, let me know.